this afternoon at Lakeland Apartments here in Perham, and Chuck Scheidecker has allowed us to interview him, and it's been pretty fun already, actually. just while we were setting up here, he's told us some fun things. But of course, we're going to focus on the World War II aspect of what Chuck has to say. And so, Chuck, if you'd like to maybe just start out by telling us a little bit about what you were doing before the war came along.
Well, I was going to high school. I was a farm boy, and I was 18, and I got put in 1A, and I asked to get a deferment for 3 months so I could finish high school. No way. The war was going on, and they said no. Well, I said okay. Then I said, I'm not taking the Army. I'm going to enlist in the Navy. So then I went down to Fort Snelling, and when the rest of them went down there, and I enlisted in the Navy, and that was 1943. And in December, and then I actually was sworn in and on my, I forget what date it was, in January of 44. So it'd been January of 44 is when I was sworn in, and then I had got inducted, and I did my training in Farragut, Idaho, in the Navy. And from there on, it was the boot training first was in January and February, and then should I continue on to?
Absolutely. Just go ahead and talk.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Yep, you just take it from here, sure.
I had some weird feeling when I run through Perm here when I went to Farragut, Idaho. My parents live here in town then at that time. They sold the farm and stuff, and that was, in them days there was a steam engine train, passenger train. And my parents were by the railroad track when I went through because the train didn't stop. And I was standing by the side door looking out, and the steam from the engine come down, and that was the last I seen of my parents. And this was the first time I was away from home. That was kind of hard to take, but I got over it. There was a million other ones had the same treatment, I guess. And then I went through the training in Farragut, Idaho, and then I come home on boot leave. Then I got sent back to Farragut, Idaho, and there was what they call outgoing unit. Then I got shipped to Schumacher, California. And from there on, I was thought by enlisting I would have got some schooling, and I wanted to be a radio operator. Went into the radio business that time. But the second choice that you had, they give you out to sea. Well, they forgot about my first choice, and it was in Schumacher, California, and then we got transferred over to Tiburon, California, and that's on the side hill, about maybe 2 blocks from Alcatraz, on the side of the mountain. And around, and on the other side of us was San Quentin. And so it was no use to go over the hill there because it was a pretty steep hill. But from there on, then we took some training for, it was actually connected to the amphibious the service, or like the amphibious stuff that they done.
Like for landing?
Landing and stuff. And then they decided Why, I don't know, but they put us on a troop train and sent us all the way over to Wilmington, North Carolina in July on a troop train. And we went through, had to go to Washington, D.C. and then down. And then in July, and they would not let us out of our dress clothes. And I said, the first time when we got into Chicago, my buddy and I, we went right away and run to the USO and took a good shower and changed unders and put back the dirty clothes again and then finished the trip. And we got in Wilmington, North Carolina, and there wound up was dry dock experience that we were supposed to have. Well, Wilmington, North Carolina ain't very far from Norfolk, Virginia. And that's the biggest naval station in the world. And why they picked us? Well, in Wilmington, North Carolina, it was unbelievable. I thought the end of the world was then, that we got put on the dry dock, a cement thing that was made out of cement, solid cement. And the ship towed us, and we had to take that out on the Atlantic Ocean, all the way through Panama Canal, and up to, where did we use? Well, we took it up to San Pedro, California. I don't know how long that trip was, but that was an awful experience to be on the Atlantic Ocean with a piece of concrete and we got into a storm that wasn't really a storm, it was typhoons, water typhoons. And the waves, they get 45 to 50 feet high. And we're being pulled by this ship. And then we got notice that the skipper on the ship that was pulling us, if the storm kept up, he was going to disconnect us. And we'd have been floating around out there and we'd have capsized. It would have been to the bottom of the ocean. And a couple of times we listed over 45 degrees, which when you go over 45 degrees, you go all the way. But the good Lord pushed us back with a wave, and we stayed afloat. And talk about some sick sailors. If there was any sailor on there that wasn't sick, he was lying, because there was proof about being sick. But I'll never forget that. And then we got down through the Panama Canal. We had to wait for the fleet to go through there, and there we pulled into, Balboa, and had an anchor out of the bay, but backing up a little bit there after before this storm, when I was standing up on watch, on what they call the mid-watch, the ship, when it goes, it leaves a wake. You know, it's a phosphorus in the water, and you can see behind you for miles where you've been. And all of a sudden here there was a scope coming up. And the skipper ruled it out, it was a German sub. And I said, I still think when he took a look at that thing we were on, I think they went back to Germany.
Why waste a torpedo? It'll go down anyway, right?
I think they did. But they wouldn't have been for the storm. They probably would have torpedoed us and sunk that thing, and they probably couldn't have got it loose on the ship and sunk the ship too. But we finally got through the locks, and then we got up to San Pedro, California, and there was some engine trouble on the dock. You know, they furnished their own current on the dock, on the dry dock, and made our own water and stuff. They took us off of there after a couple of weeks and sent us up to San Pedro, California. No, not from San Pedro up to Stockton, California. And there they made dry docks that were something really to look at. They were 7 sections, and they were pulled. All 7 of us got pulled out to Marshall Islands, and then you coupled together. And that, by coupling it together, we could go down just like a submarine, and they had the ship molds from the ship, that any ship that was crippled, we could pick it up out of the water, fix it up, put it down again, and let the ship go. And seeing the Japs got wise to this, where these ships coming back with holes in so fast, you know. And I don't remember which ones the ships were, but there were a lot of them. But every night there was some, I gotta watch so I don't swear. So the Japanese were out, you know, they were suicide planes.
Yeah, the
comics, they'd come in single planes, but we were pretty well protected. But I was a gunner on a 20 millimeter in the front, forward after that particular dry dock was just like a ship, and only we was being pulled. And they were all 7 of them put, and it was a huge operation. And they had to go down in the water all at once, you know, and pick up a ship. And then, of course, that's got to be what you call a secret for the service, you know, we didn't dare to write home what we were on. We always said repair ship, that's all we always went by. If you wrote anything in there about dry dock, it was cut out. And sometimes the letter would look like it went through a sieve or something, or a paper cutter. And then we sat out there, and we were right in the bay in Anahuac. That's in the Asiatic Pacific, that's what they call it. That's the furthest. We were pretty close to Tokyo. And then I sat there, and of course I was a boatswain mate. And then we had amphibious boats that we used for like hauling grocery stores and stuff. And I had to go get the mail and stuff, but I had to go across the channel. And that channel was something else I never forgot about. Christmas Day, I went over to pick up a Catholic priest or chaplain so we could have service on the island. Well, that bay was so rough that it wasn't really fit to be going in with that small a boat. So I got on the blinker system that, what do you call it?
Flasher, the
signal
flasher,
signal light, yeah. And asked that chaplain if he was willing to come ride back in that storm. He said, I'm going to leave it up to you. Well, I said, we haven't been to church for quite a while, and I said, I'll be over to pick you up. And they got over there, and coming back, it was worse. And he rode right behind me, and I was in an LCM with that steel. The boatswain mate, we were in a steel cage. And that was something. We put her capsized a couple times with that thing. But that chaplain was a young Catholic chaplain, and everybody had service over there then. Then we had, I don't think in that one picture, it was a bamboo made church. We made it out of bamboo church, and so we had, and it also, the island that was the church was on was also a ammunition dump island. I mean, a lot of stuff we didn't even know what it was. And Then shortly after, when the war was over with, then we were allowed to have beer parties, you know, something to keep. We had to wait in our turn to come home, you know. And of course, right away when we went over there, we always had to be kept busy to keep the people, the men from fighting amongst themselves. You know, if you kept busy doing something, then there was never no trouble. And I was a boatswain for the forward aft the ship, and my buddy was forward in the back. And I had as high as 100 good sailors under me, and so my buddy did. And we had, our ship was, I think it took after our captain's name. His name was Strickland, and he was strict. He was a little crapper, but he meant business. And after the war, then we started having, I don't know how often, but that Budweiser green beer came out there with that. He drank one can and he was sick for a month, but it sure tasted good while he was drinking it. I don't know, I wasn't very old that time. But then I would also run the captain's gig. That's to haul the officers around. And that was a regular speedboat, they call them crash boats, and they had a 250 horse Gray Marine motor in it, like our speedboats, but it had a little canopy on the back where the officers sat. Then I really run into experience there. I went over, got called over to pick up the officers because they had their full of booze, their party, and I never realized that what kind of responsibility it was to pick up a bunch of officers, and that water was rough. And I told the skipper, I said, you guys got all your personnel in the back, you got to sit down. I said, because that water is rough. And I said, I can't control this when I make a landing to the boat. Because the swells that just pick you up and just push you right against the ship, you know. And the skipper used to, yeah, he give the other officers, told them to sit down. Well, they were all enumerated, so they didn't pay too much attention. First thing you know, well, the skipper says, well, make your landing. And I made the landing, went up there, and the boat hit the ship, and I got half a dozen of them in the water, including the skipper. And I looked over the side of the boat, and there was his hat. And oh boy, and I shut the engine off so he wouldn't go in the prop. And I reached over and I grabbed his hat, but no skipper. Wow, now what? And that water just up and down, you know, the swells are just terrible. All of a sudden here he pops up right next to where I peeled the hat out of there. And he wasn't a real big man, but I was able to get him by the shirt in the back here. And just by going down like that up in there, and the person don't know your strength when you're scared stiff. And I pulled him up, threw him in the back of the ship, and then these other ones, they helped each other. We finally got them back in. Nobody drowned it, but I thought, oh boy, tomorrow I can look for a court-martial. I thought, well, there was a bunch of them standing up on the ship, and they all went to vouch for me, went to bat for me, and sure enough, the next morning, the skipper called me up to his quarters, and I tried to be as military as I could be, saluting them and stuff, but I was shaking so bad that the skipper knew it too, I think. And then he finally told me to calm down. He said, I was just not going to bawl you out. He said, I'm just going to give you some credit. He said, you've got some pretty good buddies on here. They've been already up here telling me what happened. He said, don't worry about it. There's no court-martial, no nothing. You did just exactly what you were supposed to do. Well, I thought it shortened my life a little bit, but I guess I grew out of it. And it wasn't, I don't know what it was, wasn't even a month later, the skipper passed away out there. He was drinking too much. He was 42 years in the Navy, and when the day of the war was over with, I can see him standing there yet when we had roll call in the morning. And he said he had arthritis in this finger and that one there. And he got mad at you, he'd put that under your nose, you know. And he said, when we had roll call, he said, now I know that you guys ain't gonna like this. But he said, right now we should turn around and go over and stomp Russia. That's gonna be the next. He said, sometime in your life we're gonna have trouble with Russia, and we should. And well, we all thought he was nuts because we had enough of the service. Wound up, it's true what he said. But he was a military good captain. Boy, I mean, we had a clean ship, and everybody, you didn't have to put anybody on report. You just, and that was one nice thing. He would say, if you got to put anybody on the report, you're a poor bosun mate. He said, you just tell them they don't do one, and just tell the other guys there will be no liberty when we get to the shore the next day. So you just tell them if somebody raised hell, 5, 6 of them took care of them. They did the fighting for them. Well, there was no way you could fight 100 guys, you know, try to win, and then even I got accused of being Jim Cagney's twin brother, which I don't know, this day, I don't think I ever looked like James Cagney, but they thought I did. But a few things happened, I guess, that on the good parts when we come through the Panama Canal. Sailors always had to be in some kind of a fight till you got a good licking yourself, then you. So, other than that, I mean, the Japanese, well, when they came over, them airplanes came over, well, when, Lord knows when, I don't know how many guns were shooting at them, because they had to get them out of the air before they dove into your ship. And if they hit our ship, there were 7 of us hooked together. That would have been a mess. And I don't think anybody could imagine what would have happened if they'd have hit the middle, you know, and capsized the other ones or whatever. But that, as far as the Japs go, that wasn't not too much action for me because it wasn't a fighting ship. It was, we were out there, but they wanted to get at us because they couldn't figure out why them ships were coming back they put holes in, and they're coming back and they ain't got no hole. So, oh, I don't know, other than that, to me, it was a real big, good experience, but I would never want to go back in it again. Because from 18 to 21, that's the best time of your life, where you make decisions what you're going to do. But the good Lord and a good mother that prayed day and night for all 3 of us, brothers, and I mean, she prayed all night, I think, or all day. We all came back with no real serious troubles. All I come back inherited the malaria from the islands. Because the mosquitoes, they were as big as horseflies. But it's unreal that you can be out there in the islands and it can be so foggy and hot like that, 110, 15, just day after day, you know. And I was one of the light hair and light skin. You can get sunburnt real quick. And I mean that, but the mosquitoes, that was more at night, but we'd go out trying to entertain ourselves at night on top of the ship by what's sad now is the Navy buddies that I kept in contact with. I got one left out of the whole bunch, and he's from Minneapolis. And the other ones are just the last years now has been. So I'm looking forward to the day to see him again. So, and I think I will. But experience to be in war like that, I don't see why people can't get along and without. The good Lord never made the world like this. It's the people who made it themselves.
I believe we can get along. We just haven't. I believe we can get along without war.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten our act together yet.
We got to be. But you know, when you look at it, there's been wars since the time of Christ. Look at the Holy Land.
There have always been wars.
There's always been. They're fighting over there, and that's our Holy Land that we believe in, you know. And then here, them people are, you know, like that Saddam killing his own people. Well,
there always have been wars, but I still hold hope for the human race that we will learn how to get past it.
Yeah, well, if you don't, I think somebody else is going to take care of it.
I really believe we will.
And that's But when I got it from the service, well, I guess I did say I signed up for 6 years when I went in. And I couldn't get in if I didn't. You had to take 6 years or the Army. I said, I'll take 6 years in the Navy, because I always said them poor guys that were in the Army dying in a mud hole and then have some Google-eyed bugger come and stick a bayonet in you yet besides, and then leave you there for dying. On the ship, if it went down, everybody went. And drowning isn't, I don't think, half as bad as a bullet hole through you and a bayonet stuck into you. But then when I got out of the service, well, when we got back to the States, well, when we came back, we went through Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. And that time, the Arizona wasn't, it was just the ship part sticking out there yet. We took a look at that, the mess that was to be cleaned up there after they had bombed us. And the civilian people, that women and kids, you know. Well, the day of when Truman dropped that bomb away, there's a lot of them say that they should have never done that, but I think he saved a lot of lives on both sides. And they would not quit. They wouldn't have quit. We'd probably be fighting them yet. But even after the war, when we got back to Norfolk, I got discharged in Norfolk, Virginia, in the air base. Never was connected to the air base at all. And they come out with an all-NAF. You could either stay in the 6 years or stay in the Navy. You had a choice.
And all.
See, I had 3 years in, and I was supposed to stay 6. But they had an all-nef that they come out with that you could add your choice. You could stay in or go home, which I would think I was the first one that outrun the other guys down to the discharge. But then I got discharged in the Naval Air Station. And before that, I guess I'm ahead of my time there a little bit. I didn't know that we were going to was able to get out. I came home on leave. I had over 30 days leave, and never knew that this all-nef comes. So when I got back, and I just thought, well, if I got to stay the 6 years, I'm going to see if I'll make it a career of it. But then I wasn't back a week, back to Norfolk after my leave. They said that anybody that was in that 6-year regular Navy had a choice to get out. And so I took that choice, but there's times I wished I'd have never did. Because if I'd have made a career of it, I'd have been retired at 38. But probably lived a fast enough life, I'd have never lived that long. My dad says, you better go back and stay in there. So then when I got home, my other 2 brothers were discharged already. My oldest brother, he went in 42, I think it was. And he was home, and then my second oldest brother, I went in 6 months before he did because he wanted to finish high school. And so I said, well, they won't let me, so I went in before he did.
They let him finish but not let you?
Yeah. Well, he was had the year before that, though, see.
Oh, okay.
He was a year before, see.
Sure.
I wouldn't have been 18 then.
Right.
So he let him finish. But then when it come to my year, 44, that's when the Battle of the Bulge was going to take place. That if I'd have been in the Army, that's where I'd have been, I think. But Lord knows what anything there. But then when I come home, well, where's all this government deals that you could have to get a job, Well, you couldn't buy a job. And my folks he was lucky to be working himself. So I decided that time there was a Jew that lived in Perm here. He was actually from Detroit Lakes. He was one super guy. I went to work for him, and I worked for him for 3 years in Detroit Lakes. And I met my wife that time and decided to get married. And then she's a farm girl, and she thought that we should be farm people. So we had tried farming, and that Joe, he asked me how much money I had to get started. I said, I don't have a rotten penny. He said, you find a renter farmer. He said, I'll set you up. He set me up with no interest, just pay. I made my own payments back like I could, I wanted to. And then about 4 months, I guess it was, I lost all my cows in bank disease. No cows, and I couldn't buy back till they were all vaccinated. And I went in and told Abe, I said, well, the government I paid That time I think it was around $400 a cow. And the government, when they took them, shipped them to South St. Paul, I got $125 from them. Well, I took the check and then I said, well, I told him I'll pay you the balance off. He said, no, you won't. He said, you just go home and mark it paid. And his name was Abe Diamond. I thought of that many times, that like World War II, that Hitler bugger, he had to kill all those Jews and got by with it. And this Jew, Abe Diamond, I tell you couldn't find an honester guy. And he helped many poor people here around Perm. You can ask anybody, the older people, about Abe Diamond, and they'll tell you that he'd loan money out to people and let them pay it back when they went in. He said I didn't have no trouble. They paid me back. So I didn't send them no bill. They all paid me back. Then they give me what they get for interest. He was 99 when he died. And then from farming, when it started like that, well, I was a GI, then I was a veteran, and went and got a veteran's loan out of Fergus. And I bought a whole herd, another herd that was a farmer that retired. And I don't know how many it was, cows it was in the morning. And then I had a chance to go artificial breeding, so I get better stock. Well, that wasn't meant for me either. First two best cows that I had, when they had their calves, they couldn't have them, they were so darn big. I lost two of the best cows right off the bat. Well, what do you do? Well, she said, well, you're trying, what are you gonna do? So, in jobs then, that you had to be doing something. So, got another loan and bought some more stuff. Then I got hailed out 2 years in a row. And I always I was young and work never killed me, and it didn't bother me that much, but the only thing I never had crop failure with is I had 4 kids in 3.5 years. So the good Lord was watching out for me there, and I got 7 of them, and they're all good kids.
They're all keepers, huh?
Yeah, and right. None of them, I never had a lick of trouble with them smoking pot or anything. And they all got good jobs and stuff. But
you must have done something right.
But I never smoked in my life, and then the oldest one, he was wrestled in high school, and he went to the state. And one day when he was at home, and I said, now you're going to be a senior, I said, what kind of cigarettes do you want me to buy? I'll buy you a pack. Oh, and that redhead, he just tore me apart. He said, well, how come you never had a smoke? I said, I just never did. I was in the service and never had it called chicken and everything else, and I don't think I ever could have smoked. And he kept the other kids kind of fatherly like. He watched them with that. They didn't, and the girls never smoked. And
why was it you were offering him to buy him cigarettes?
I'd buy him 1 pack.
I see.
And then you buy your own from then on.
But was he already smoking?
Huh?
He was already.
No, he never did, because he was wrestled, know.
Okay.
But he, 145-pound weight, and he's a 6-footer.
Wow.
And he lives out by the mills. He's the head custodian in the New York Mills High School. But he always comes around that because he always kind of chewed me out because I was a candy man for 20 years over here at Young's jobbing. 13 years at Young's, and then I finished up in Detroit Lakes for Lakes jobbing. And sold over $1 million worth of cigarettes at least.
Oh, I see. Sure.
And I carried the pack open all the time. And they'd ask, well, what's the new cigarette taste like? I said, well, as far as I know, I think they're pretty good, but here, try them.
You try it. You
And the
die from
women
it.
were always willing to try a new cigarette. And I thought, well, God, that cigarette looks better in your face than mine. But that was just pure luck. And then I had to have a bypass for non.
Yeah, not from smoking.
Yeah, I got
yeah.
That's 12 years ago. I had that done in Fort Snelling.
Let's head back to the Fort Snelling. That's where you first were sent
Inducted.
Inducted. Okay. Yeah. Was at Fort Snelling then. Okay. And then to Idaho for the boot training. So you were just inducted at Fort Snelling, but they sent you to Idaho to
Yeah.
actually go through boot training.
Yeah. That's that time you either went to Idaho or Great Lakes.
And that was in December and January or January.
January and
It
February,
could get
really.
quite cold in Idaho too.
No.
No. No.
For Coeur d'Alene,
Oh, you were in Coeur d'Alene. Okay.
Farragut, Idaho is just 14 miles, I guess,
Oh,
to
that's a beautiful.
Sand
area.
Point is where we got off at.
Oh wow.
But we'd get in boot training, we'd get a foot of snow at night. And the next morning go out there and out in the drill field,
Yeah.
drill. And by noon there wasn't a snowflake out in the drill field no more. Them Chinook winds come down through there and melted everything down into Idaho Lake, and
It's amazing.
prettiest place in the world there.
It's just
But you couldn't go over the hill there. We were there's just a short opening into the entry.
the pass.
The rest is mountains straight up. Yeah, I got pictures of a deer come down there, and they got to be a nuisance for a while, You pet them, and of course feed them whatever they liked, And one night I was out there.
Problem then, yeah.
Was out around the wash line poles, standing my watch, And I said, gee, and then we had dummy guns. We never had live then in boot training, Pretty soon I heard the snow creaking behind me. Cripe, I think I had hair growing clear down to my ankles. I thought, what the hell does he want with me? So I thought, I want to walk a little faster up to that corner. Then I made the corner. And then I turned around and I hauled Hugo and here the great big buck deer. And I shoot him off a little bit, but he just run off and kind of laughed at me, I guess. So,
Now you had wanted to get into the radio works. Why particularly that? Just something.
well, that time in boot training, they give you a test, for what you could be qualified for.
Your aptitude.
And what do they call that? Morse code. You had to take a test on that, and I did real good on that. And that would have qualified me to go through radioman school. But my second oldest brother, he just wanted to get in and get the heck out of the service. He went to radioman school.
Oh.
He come on, and he was radioman on the Missouri. He was on the Missouri when they signed the treatment on.
Really?
And the other brother was out there. We were all three out there once and didn't know it.
You were there also then when it was signed?
Well, no.
You mean out in the same area is what you're saying,
with Anahuac is. And then my other oldest brother, he was out there, and he was in the Armed Guard, but that's a branch of the Navy that run the tankers, the tanker ships. They called that Armed Guard, and he was out there. But I would have liked to, if I could have got to that radioman school, even when I came out, you know, that was a good, you know, you led from one thing to the other, you know, and get into communication. You know. But it wasn't for me, and I kept raising 7 kids. Got to be the candy man. And
You mentioned that you were right near Alcatraz and San Quentin, but it almost sounded like you were saying you were on the same island as they were?
No.
couldn't
That's
have
an
been.
island of itself.
Yeah, right.
Well, how would you say, the mountainside that we were on, San Quentin is down from there.
Okay.
They're not on no island. That's on that side of the mountain there too, but that's more level down there. But that strip of mountain comes from San Rafael over to San Francisco, and you go across the Golden Gate Bridge. And when we took, for us to get over to San Francisco for Liberty, you know, for 4-hour pass or whatever, we had to ride the Delta Queen riverboat. And we the experience we had there, you go across the San Francisco Bay, and them buggers are they're flat bottoms. And we were tipping over with them, and right out there in front of Alcatraz. And that's the only way we could get over there. So, and then my buddy and I, we kind of took care of that for a while. We'd hitchhike, go up.
Yeah.
It was only about half a mile. You could walk up to the whatever highway, some San Rafael
101?
to no, over the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, okay.
So one day it was my 19th birthday. Decided we were going to celebrate that over at San Rafael. Went over there, and young snots, 19 years old, you know, we got a hold of some Spanish, like blackberry brandy, Spanish brandy, and that you could drink that just like good cow's milk. But oh man,
Had a kick.
19 years old. So we got enough in San Rafael to drink. I said, let's go over, hitchhike over to San Francisco and go. My buddy always liked Chinese food, and I did, in that Chinatown.
Oh, yeah.
We'd go into
great.
Chinatown there, and it was great. But we got going over there hitchhiking, and I suggested when we got right to the Golden Gate, I decided, let's get off. I said, and walk across the Golden Gate. This is the only chance we're going to have. And boy, what a mistake.
That's quite a ways.
Mile and a quarter.
Yeah.
And then drunk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you make more miles than you should. And not only that, but I got a halfway across. I said, God, I'm getting sick. Well, it's too late now. We got to go with the rest of it. So like both of us, stupid, we went down. There's a catwalk. You can go underneath the bridge. That's just open
Oh, you could have
screen, you know.
fallen off.
You can fall out of there.
Oh, okay.
It's all wired,
Okay,
heavy
yeah,
wire.
that part.
But you go down and you can go up on the other side.
Right.
And so we walked around, oh my God, 250 feet to the water. I said, that's a hell of a ways down there. And boy, you just tippy-toed across there, and you'd never fall out of there. But we got over on the other side. Well, this ain't no good. We better go over on the other side. So we walked back, and I said, now what are we going to do? Let's go the rest of the way. I said, wait a minute. I said, I said, look, I said, this damn bridge swings, and it does. What is it,
It's a system.
5 feet or 7
Yeah.
feet? I said, we ain't gonna make it over. This thing is busting down. And it don't move like this, you know.
No, it's-
It just turned pretty soon. Hell, I said, you could see the end of the bridge, you know. And we're standing in the middle, but we could see the end. And that didn't help. And then the man, he was always determined that I should smoke. Well, I thought if I ever going to smoke, I'm going to smoke now before I die. So I took a cigarette and I took 2 puffs. Well, that did it.
I was gonna say, that didn't help a lot either.
That was sicker yet. I couldn't believe it. And then I got over there. We finally made it across. And we laid down in the grass there until it got dark. We got to Chinese restaurant, but we decided that we weren't going to eat because I don't think we could. So then we went back to the docks and hitchhiked back on the ferry boat. That ferry boat, that was quite a deal. That was that big wheel in the back, you know.
Yeah.
That was,
Wow.
who was out there? Colored guy? Colored girl?
Just a couple gals going by.
Oh.
The
As far as just what that submarine and Lord knows what else was following us that we didn't know about. But that when we came back, we thought we were all going to go back to San Francisco and get off the ship. Oh no. We went all the way through the Panama Canal, clear back up to Norfolk, Virginia.
Oh my word.
Back through the Panama Canal. And believe me, that Panama Canal, that's something too. The Pan American police there, if you got out of line and they throwed you in jail,
You stayed there.
you stayed there. The Army or the Navy couldn't get you out. And we wound up with a good Navy buddy. He was old enough to be our dad. He was from California. Joyce, his name was. He didn't like the looks of one of them cops was giving him a bad time. And he was 44 years old, but he was all man. Well, when they got through with him, they had him in jail. And they took him down to what they call the duck farm with his whites on, dress whites. And they had him in there we were there for 2 weeks. So my buddy and I, we thought we were pretty cocky and we're going to go get him out, whether we get thrown in jail or not. So we asked the skipper though if we could go get him. Well, he said that's fine, but he said I'll see if I can make arrangements for you to go pick him up. Was a good thing. He did. He made the arrangements. But when we got there, we got to the gate. We got a jeep from the shore patrol, and it was out. God knows where it was out on the somewheres that out in the country where them ducks were, and there were ducks all over. And here we could see him in there, and he had 44 years old. I think he had pretty gray hair already. And he seen us, and he come up there. I said, "We come to pick you up, Joyce." And the cop, their guard there, he said, "No, you're not going." Yeah, I said, "The skipper called out here and said we were told to pick him up." "Well, I'll go find out. You guys wait in your jeep." It's a good thing we didn't do what my buddy thought we should do. But
Take off in the jeep with him. Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd have been all in picking ducks. But here pretty soon they come, they went on. Holy smoke, we put him in the back because he stunk so bad from ducks. Picking ducks and whites on, they were just, huge. Boy, after that, we had to keep him on the ship because he'd have killed somebody.
The troop train that went across in July, I'm
That
curious
was
now.
an experience myself that I wouldn't want to do
It
that.
must have been awful hard for the air conditioning to keep up with you guys, right?
Air
Yeah, just seeing if I can get a rise out of you.
Yeah. Soot on the windows that thick, that steam engine, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And the only nice thing about it is, I think it was Omaha, Nebraska. They how do you say? What is it? Salvation Army, I think it was. When we stopped there, they come aboard with sandwiches, coffee, and pop.
Really? Wow.
Come right on the women for the Salvation. And man, them sandwiches must have been made out of gold because they sure tasted good. And that, they could eat as much as you wanted to. And they brought a lot of stuff on there. But then the next stop was Chicago. Then we had to change trains there. And I said to Van, my buddy, I said, let's go over and get a shower. This is terrible. We went over to the shower and got done, and we come out of there and looked across, and here's a big sign up, Navy shoe factory. They made them floor sign shoes that we were wearing, and they were good, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, golly," I said, that's where they make them. Well, he said, "What the hell do you want to do in there?" I said, "Ain't going in there. See that bar right along the side of there?" I said, "That's where we're at. Let's get some of this stuff washed down." So we went in this bar, and the place was loaded with some pretty nice looking girls. And that kind of spoiled us there for a while. We started drinking, we forgot about the train. We had to change depots. And there was a troop train, they were over on the other side of town or something, I don't know. And I couldn't get that van in myself, I couldn't get convinced to leave. And finally those girls, they called some older guy over there, and he was one of the shop foremans, I guess, or something. He said, "You guys are going to get in trouble if you miss that train." Oh, the hell with the train. The girls was real nice. Well, he said, I'll buy you one more drink, you guys, and then take you over to the other depot. And well, the girls decided to ride along, so we decided then that was all right.
That helped get you going.
You come outside here, you had a Cadillac sitting out there. And that was nicer yet. But he was a real nice guy. But how stupid a guy could be. I always thought I should have got that guy's address, and afterwards. But no, that's tomorrow. But that was, we got over there and we barely got aboard. And
Could have been in big trouble. Wow.
yeah, and we went over the hill, we'd have been thrown in jail, because missed the train.
Tell me about the solid cement, whatever floating thing, whatever. I'm at a loss to understand why that was solid cement and what it was for and what they were doing. And
if you get the VFW magazine, and when they have it in there, it's ABSD. Auxiliary Floating Dry Dock is, I guess, what it really was.
all right.
And ours was ABSD George 7. We were the 7th one out there, but we were out there, way out there, and the other ones were some of the other islands there.
But it's literally made out of concrete?
No, I guess I didn't explain that right. This one we were out there, the big one, that was metal. That concrete one we dumped in San Pedro.
Okay. Yeah, but the one you went through the canal Was
That one we brought back, that metal one with us, all the way around through back up to Norfolk, Virginia.
okay?
See, we had that 50-year charter,
Yes, it would have been.
but
90.
here was that membership. We had that party for membership dues
Okay.
once a year, you know. And the last one we had was to that party that night, and then that who next? Oh, Art Sasma is the commander. He said, "Now we have all the charter members stand up and applaud him." So I just stood up. And the other guys started talking to me. He says, "You better sit down." I said, "Why?" "Well, look around. I'm the only guy standing."
You were the only charter member there.
Well, no, there's charter members there, but they're up in the home.
Yes, but I mean at the meeting. There.
Yeah, well, that's the only one
Yeah.
left with there's other ones, you know, that live different towns, you know.
Right.
But the one here was,
Yeah.
I thought to myself, what a fool to stand up alone
That's what
like
they
that.
asked you
Oh,
about.
I don't
That's
know.
what- I think it was
something sentimental went through my head
be a
that,
great honor to be a charter member and stand
yeah,
up
but
like
just
that.
one, you know. I wasn't the only one that, when we started the club then, when we got there and sat on empty beer cases for chairs,
A little different.
and then we moved three times and finally got up to that one. But we do have a nice club, and a good auxiliary too. The auxiliary has really helped our club.
Is that right?
They had their ups and downs, but they kept it going. You know, they worked together. And,
It's quite an impressive VFW, I believe.
yeah.
I'm very impressed with it. It's just, I mean,
And I'll say one thing, I don't know, up until now, Solomon is back from, he got a different guy for our service officer,
okay.
but we had that Tom, I don't know, I can't pronounce his name yet. Boy, he's kept down in Fergus now, and a different guy is coming, but he's done a lot for me. He's out there to do everything that he can for you, and some of them, I think they just.
Yeah. Which one was the one that was so good? What's his name again?
It,
Or the one, the Tom.
Tom something,
Yeah,
real
that's okay,
it's Z-I-Z-Z-I or something like that.
Okay.
And now the Fergus Falls is got a VFW van that comes through here to go to Fergus, to Fargo for the hospital.
That's great.
To go up there. I used to drive up alone, but you don't ever know when you be sick on the way home or something. And we got to pay $15 to ride it, but it's worth every bit of it.
That's worth it. You bet.
Yeah, 'cause this way you come, they usually got 3 or 4 other guys on the bus, so. And pretty good drivers.
The thing I'm most impressed with the organization here is that they're the people that have the foresight to take on this project. This project, and I mean, talk about
The reason,
an amazing.
the reason I didn't think I wanted to be is because I know there's other ones that went through quite a bit of hell, but if they'd have started this now, like 2 years ago,
They wanted to, they just couldn't find anyone to do the interviewing.
do the interview. There's one guy that you should interview, but I don't know. I think his mind is good yet. He's up in the home. Carl Johnson.
I've interviewed Carl. Yes.
Have you?
Yes.
He's a super guy. Well, he's got a plate in his head. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was up there the other day, and he likes that music when they'll Yankee out there. He plays there
Okay.
And he was sitting quite a ways back, and we had a guy from here, Don Milken. He just died here last week. He was in here. He was a VFW. But he was on the tail end, and he had 4 kids when he was in World War II.
Wow.
But the other day when he was still in the home of this guy, I took Blake along up there, and we visited him, and then there was music was playing, and Carl was sitting in his wheelchair, digging around.
Music,
So I went over and I grabbed his wheelchair, and he said, "What are you sitting way back here for?" "Oh, Chuck," he said, I guess I don't go up there enough to, and them guys, you know, that like Carl, he was our bartender for a while when we were uptown here, and all crippled up, you know, and always smiling.
I've interviewed about, I believe, 6 or 7 veterans that are in
Perm?
in the Perm home. Yeah. And,
Who else?
Well,
Earl Lemko?
Earl Lemkill, Carl Johnson, Lawler Olson.
Waller Olson?
I think not, and I'm gonna feel bad because I'm gonna leave some names out. You can see their Urban Cole.
Oh yeah, he lived over in this house over here.
See their faces. Can I drop the names at the moment? Gosh, I wish I could. But and then Paul Stevens now has just
Paul Stevens.
Paul Stevens just moved into there.
And
I'd interviewed him when he was in his home still.
They're in that magazine that I.
Yes. Well, let's catch back a little bit to your World War II experiences, and then I'll let you go.
No.
But there's something here that when the German submarine or the scope came up, you said that the skipper tried to write it off as though it hadn't been a German submarine. Is that what you were saying?
That's what the skipper said it was. I don't know. He knew what angle what they looked like. He was out quite a ways in the water.
Okay.
If he'd have caught up with us with the storm, wouldn't have quit. If it would have quit,
Yes.
I'm sure.
He'd have taken you out.
See, they followed behind that wake, and that wake
You mentioned
calmed
something
the
about
water.
phosphorus.
Phosphorus in the water.
What's the phosphorus part of the wake? What do you mean by that?
It leaves a
It's
trail.
It's all. I know. I've seen wakes, but I mean.
No, from the screw, the propellers, it makes churns something that phosphorus up in the water that
all right.
you can see where you went. See, he just kept following the ship.
Oh, okay.
Different. Oh, and then in Panama Canal, you know, they were trying to knock that out.
Yeah.
And we sat out in Balboa's side there for near a week, and we had to be up on the watch every once and that. But there they had pretty good security down there. Panama was guarded pretty well.
Quite heavily. You said you were a boatsman's mate?
That time
On the forward aft. Now that's a contradiction of terms to me, so you're going to have to explain
Forward
the
aft?
forward aft.
that's the head of the front part of the ship.
Yeah, but isn't the aft the rear of the ship?
Yeah,
Well, how can you be in the forward part of the rear of the ship? That's what I want to know.
forward.
The forward aft. Isn't that what you said?
I should say the forward. Yeah, I think that's the way they say it.
Yeah,
the
it
forward
sounded like
aft
the
of the
term.
ship.
Okay.
That's the front, and Van was he was in the rear aft of the ship.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I was just trying to figure that out. Yeah. Wow, there were so many experiences here. I'm so glad that we were able to get the interview. You mentioned that you got malaria. Now, is that something that has still bothered you then?
You bet.
Yeah, I thought
They had it the other day. When I first came out, our family doctor was Scheidecker, Paul Scheidecker, and he was an Army doctor. And I went in there for a test, and he said, "Well, you got it," but he said, "Give it another 5-6 years, and it'll be gone." That's 40 years ago.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to tell us about before we look at some of the pictures?
Well, There's some that experienced it that was stupid, but like drowning.
What's that?
Like drowning. We come back from the ship from the Panama Canal.
Well, are you saying you were started to drown? Or?
Well, about 20 of us. Stupid.
Yeah, well, let's hear about it.
When you drink, you know.
Yes.
And we come back from Liberty, and they were the dumb sailors always had that idea of last in the water is chicken manure, you know.
Oh, yes.
And this is 12 o'clock at night. All sitting up there, come back from the ship and laughing and joking, and some wise bugger said, last one in the drink is a chicken there. And they jumped off the wrong side of the ship, and they had to swim all the way around the back.
Oh, wow.
Back around the ship to get to the gangway plank to get back on. And I never was a good swimmer. I could save myself, and that's about it, but not when you're, and when we hit 35 feet to the water, we jumped out, all of it, just like a bunch of ducks, you know, dumb ducks. Jumped off into the water.
I wonder you didn't land on each other, too.
And not only that, that Panama Canal is run by a man-made lake, Gaton Lake. And that was Roosevelt's fishing spot. And that lake is, well, I guess I put it polite, it smells like loon crap in there, you know, like a slough.
Oh, just kind of fetid, huh?
And mud, though, it's muddy, too.
Okay.
They're constantly draining it with dredgers up and down this, you know, digging the mud out because it keeps sliding into the.
Oh, okay. Oof.
Boy, I never try to swim and vomit and.
Ew.
Holy man, and
Didn't sound
boy,
like a good time was had by
never again, boy. I think my buddy. The next time somebody said that, he took him personally, thrown him in there, and he said, drown you. Oh, and I was kind of proud of that. I had a little mascot on the ship.
What was that?
A little dog.
Really? They let you keep the
Oh,
dog
yeah.
on the ship?
Yeah, he'd call him George. Yeah, we'd take him ashore. He drank with us. But boy, the next day you didn't dare to pet him. You stayed the hell away from him, boy. George, how do you feel today? And then when you go into the bar, he wanted his special seat, stool, you know. And he wasn't very big. I got a picture of him in I don't know, in one of them. He'd jump up on the top of the stool, put his bar in, then they'd take an ashtray, and pour a shot of whiskey in there. And he just lowered that down. And he keeps watching us. When our drinks were empty, he wanted another one, you know. He was a,
Now this
really
started to sound like one of those three pigs walked into a bar jokes or something.
No.
I believe you. I'm just.
then, and then, like I say, when we went back to the ship, he staggered right with us the same way. We staggered this way, he'd stagger that way. And he did up there just, and like he was talking to us, you know, you know, his tongue going in, and George, what do you think? And his little tail would go a bit, and he'd turn around like he wanted to go back for more always, you know. And he was just a stupid sailor dog. And his name was George, and I had him when I went on the 20 millimeter. When I did shooting, he was up there with me, sitting right on the, watching me.
And it didn't bother him that when the rounds were going on?
But the poor little bugger here, when we come back from overseas, I don't know why it happened, but he was sitting there. He always liked to be around us. He was sitting there, you know, just like you understand our jokes and stuff. He was sitting there, and the ship fitter had some welding to do. And he sat there, and nobody noticed him. He was watching that ship fitter.
Oh.
And then when we got up to go, he walked right off the damn ship, and we were on the way. And we couldn't turn around because when he hit the water, he was either picked up by a shark right away and stuff. But it was just like he wanted to die out there too, you know. You know, how do you know, you know?
Yeah.
Little, he was only about that big. I think we picked him up, and I think we picked him. I think I got him from in Norfolk, Virginia, when the first ship. But he was everybody's dog, but I was the one that brought him on there. He lived. And then we went through the Panama Canal. And one of the guys got a stupid monkey on there. And that's something else.
They can be quite a situation to deal with, I'm sure.
The bugger would go down when the cook would be out of the mess hall. That bugger knew where to get the cookies, steal cookies, you know. And he'd come when that cook we had, and I'll never forget his name, Brown, his name. He'd grab that big cleaver, and he'd go after that monkey, and that donkey would just scream coming up on the ship. You don't call them steps, they call them the ladder.
Yeah, the ladder, yeah.
And he'd come tearing up there in the top. Boy, Chuck Scheidecker, and my name in the Navy was Schei, S-H-Y. I never got called by my last name or the first name. And I don't know who the hell started it, but it worked, I guess.
It stuck.
Anyway, that cook, he come, he said, Schei, if you don't keep that dog out of here, or that monkey out of here. I said, it's not my monkey. I said, that monkey looks like you. Oh boy,
that helped a lot.
He got a big clear in hand. I thought I better keep still, or the monkey and I both get it. And he said, well, whoever that monkey that brought him on here aboard the ship, because I'll kill him. And that monkey did like he could understand it too. So it didn't long leave that darn monkey. He got down there again. So that cook, one day I was seeing him out there, and he was up by the life rafts, and there's ropes hanging down, line. In the Navy, it's line, it ain't no rope. And the rope lines are hanging down there, for the lifeboat. And there was one long one. And when that cook would chase that monkey up the steps, up the ladder there, he'd come out and down. That's the first thing he hit for is the lifeboat, because you couldn't get at him in there, you know. And I said, what the hell is he doing? Here, that cook was putting bacon grease on that rope. Oh. I thought, oh man, no. Sure enough, the next couple days, here he come chasing that monkey up there, and that monkey went to grab that rope, slipped out in the drink.
Oh, before he went.
And he drowned it.
Heaven's sake.
And he was screaming, boy, just screaming, but whatever fish it wasn't. We didn't have no more monkey. We had them little lovebirds on there. They were nice. They'd sit on your shoulder.
Now, were they a wild bird that had come to the ship?
No.
Or people?
Panama Canal. They got on the streets there. They sell them. And they got all kinds of them pretty parrots and lovebirds, and I don't know what all they call them.
But the sailors had bought them and brought them back to the ship then?
Yeah. And this one time, my buddy and I were walking down the street in Panama City, and I said, let's go over and look at them pretty birds, you know, something to do. And we were drinking too. And they stand there, and of course these Pan Americans, you know, they pretty good salesmen. They want you to buy, you know. And then he looked at him and he said, hell, I don't know what the hell we want with a bird on the ship. You know, probably carry lice or something too. Let's get going. Let's head for the bar. So he says, let's get out of here. We don't want any. When we was walking away, stupid parrot on the top. He had that parrot train. Cheap son of bitches, cheap son of bitches.
Really?
And that you know, he didn't like that at all. He went over and he shook that cage, And that old parrot up there, he just kept right on. Kept right on. Pretty soon this Pan American, he said, don't worry, don't bother, don't pay no attention to him. Parrot, he kind of quiet